Hey guys, welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 71. We got pre-training camp buys. We're brought to you by Dynasty Theory in partnership with Dynasty Daddy, and as always, Fantasy Football Infinity. Please join the Dynasty Theory Discord. It is free to join, and like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channels, the Twitters, the everywhere you can like us, subscribe to us, and follow us. That would be greatly appreciated. No holler tonight, but McSpankster is with me. How's it going, McSpanky?
It's good, man. It's really good. Summer is in full effect over here. It was like in the high 90s a bunch this week, and
Ooh, doggy.
I don't like being outside. But my kids don't seem to mind it, dude. My 5-year-old decided to wear pants to a little summer camp thing today, and I tried my best to talk her out of it, but she was dead set on it. So I'm like, okay, dude, these kids are built different. The heat doesn't affect them. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
Did she survive?
She did. It was inside, so it
Oh,
was fine.
okay.
But still,
Okay.
like going outside, I was like, man, it's too hot for that.
Right.
Yeah, if it was
Right.
outside, I would have put up more of a fight.
Sure. Well, it's been super hot here too. We're full swing of summer. It's freaking super humid and super hot the past few days. Finally got some storms to roll through here and break it up. But let's get into the news, not the weather. Rhamondre Stevenson signs a 4-year deal, $36 million, $17 million guaranteed. What do you think? Does this do anything for you and Rhamondre Stevenson?
It does, actually, because I was kind of operating under the effect that after this year he was going to be just kind of a free agent and maybe going into a situation where he'd be like a 1B kind of running back, whereas now they give him all that money. I think he's pretty locked into being their 1A for the foreseeable future, because I think he got a 4-year extension, so he's extended through 2028 if my math works there. This is pretty big for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty down on Rhamondre, but now I think with him getting this contract, they didn't really bring anyone else in to compete with him at running back other than Antonio Gibson, which that dude can't hold on to the football. So that's not much of a concern. And then they didn't bring anyone in via the draft. They brought in Alex Van Pelt from the Cleveland Browns. That's still a little bit of a question mark in the fact that he never called plays, and now he's a first-time offensive coordinator. But I think they're going to run the ball just a ton, and I think Rhamondre Stevenson is going to get just a ton of work. So even if the offense isn't going to be good, like Stevenson should just have a ton of volume.
Sure.
And now he's locked in for the next few years. So I'm actually kind of looking to explore buying Rhamondre. What about you? Did this news do anything for you, or are you still kind of just ho-hum on him?
I'm still just kind of ho-hum on Rhamondre. I know the volume should be there and everything like that, but like the Patriots offense could be so bad for the foreseeable, the next 2 to 3 years easily, while they improve along the lines. And he's a fine running back. He's not anybody like I'm super excited about his talent. Like I think he can do everything well, but I don't really see him as some sort of like, league winner or anything like that, or even week winner, honestly, with how we think the Patriots offense could go this season. It's good for him to, that he got that deal and he's locked up in New England. But I don't think it really moved him up or down for me, honestly. I was honestly more kind of like a head turner when I saw that the contract came through. I was like, I didn't really realize he was up or they were negotiating or anything like that. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I knew his contract was over at the end of this year, but yeah, I didn't think he was going to get that kind of money if he got anything. I thought for sure he felt like a running back that's easily replaceable via the draft, but I guess they don't see it that way. Which I mean, I guess it doesn't matter at that point, right? He got the money, he's got the contract, so we're just gonna make do with what we got here. But I think he's a pretty solid RB2 for this upcoming season, and I think for as long as they don't bring in anyone else outside of Antonio Gibson, I think he's a pretty solid RB2. He's not very old either. What is he, like 26?
Yeah, no,
yes, he is 26.
So,
I mean, I guess you're not exactly like a buy on him, but he's the RB17 right now in Dynasty Daddy. I feel like I would feel comfortable buying him if I'm a contending team or maybe even like a middling team trying to get there. I think probably a 25-second plus a third, I think could get the job done for Rhamondre. What do you think about that?
Are we talking early second?
In this case, I'm thinking more middle.
Okay.
Like a middling second and middle third for 2025.
I would do a mid second and a mid third.
Would you
I
sell
think
him for
kind of
that if you had him on your
no,
roster?
no. I would want closer to an early 2 to late
Early
1
second.
in return, or a player similar to that. Like I said, I don't think there's anything to get overly excited about. Like I'm not going to get outlandish with my Rhamondre, but I will trade him away if I can capitalize a little bit here on somebody maybe thinking on the upswing here.
I feel like I couldn't justify sending a late first because if I have a team that's going to be in that early second range, I don't think I can justify paying that either.
Right. So I don't think you'll run it. I don't think you can run into it basically at that point because unless there's a rebuilder that really thinks Rhamondre is the cornerstone for their roster that they're missing.
Which I mean, I feel like if I'm going to spend a late first on a running back, I'm going to try to just get Derrick Henry and just hope for the best. Although Rhamondre Stevenson does have a nicer shelf life, but not quite the ceiling that some of these other running backs might have.
Yeah, I agree. So the longevity does not outweigh the production for you, is what you're saying.
It's close.
Close. That's fair.
I gotta let that marinate. I don't think I could pull the trigger though. I think the value is probably about fine, but I don't think I could do it.
Yeah. I just think any running back that's starting and you see him as a startable player should probably be that early 2 late 1. Like no matter what, unless we're talking, Keenan Allen at 32 years old here. You know what I mean? Like that's a bit unrealistic. It could happen for sure, but I mean,
that's fair.
There's just some guys that I'm just saying, you're just a little bit too old to where I'm not, going to overpay here. But who knows when people are in the throes of competing.
Exactly. When your eyes get real big looking at that potential, trophy on your shelf, you get a little.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you get a little dicey, and you're just like,
my 27 first.
Yeah, dude, just take it. 26, 27. I don't need it. I need Rhamondre, baby.
Right.
One quick little stats. I've been doing a little bit of stuff here, working on like a trade calculator, kind of in the background. And as part of it, I was looking at different like positions and how many of certain positions, score like a certain threshold, right? And so the threshold I came up with for running backs was 12 PPR points per game. Only 17 over the last 2 years, so 17 each year have done that. So the running back fall off gets real nasty, so I think sometimes too dynasty players in general don't like to invest in running backs because they do like their shelf life isn't as long as it is for like wide receivers and quarterbacks. But at the same time, there's only really a dozen like really good ones, and probably about like 15 to 18 running backs that you really are going to feel good about and get consistent production on a week-in-week basis. So they probably are worth spending that 24 first, or sorry, that 25 first. I don't know what year it is. It's just like a mental thing. Like I don't know if I can actually pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, definitely very tough on the older vets for sure. So let me ask you this: Rhamondre Stevenson or Trey Benson?
Rhamondre
or David Montgomery?
Give me Rhamondre, I think, but it's close.
Oof. That's probably my Lions fandom, but I can't do it.
That's fair.
Joe Mixon or Rhamondre? I already know your answer here.
Rhamondre.
Rhamondre or James Cook?
That is where I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to take James Cook still.
Okay. Rachaad White?
I'm going to take Rachaad White there too.
Pacheco?
Rhamondre.
Okay.
But I'm lower on Pacheco than most people just because he doesn't really catch the ball.
Yeah, I'm in JB's tiers, and I'm kind of honestly shocked as to where Pacheco is. I understand why, based on the offense he's attached to. It's hard not to put him up that high, but I think you could argue him down a tier, but you can probably argue every single player in every single tier up or down one, to be honest.
Yeah, and honestly, Pacheco, like he's one of those players that at running back, he's kind of just gets put into that next group of guys because you kind of have to throw someone in there, and you don't necessarily love it, but you're like, well, someone's got to be, the running back 13, right? And it's like,
Right.
might as well be him.
Right. Why can't it be me?
Well, I mean, it could be if you were on a roster.
Okay, should we get into some of these buys?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. Why don't you throw in your first one?
Okay. It's going to come as no shock to anybody here, but Jameson Williams, I think, is a good pre-camp buy.
Sure.
There's a lot of positive coach speak that's come out about JMO this past offseason as somebody who, follows the Lions pretty darn loyally, I think. Nobody's really spoke this positively about him until this year, where they think that he can take that next step. They've never really said that about Jameson Williams at all. And I know it gets laughed at, poked fun at a little bit. There's an account out there that actually has a coach speak metric, and Dan Campbell is just like green. Like if Dan Campbell says it, it means basically that they're, going that route kind of thing. And honestly, from all the things that I've heard him say, all the stories I've heard about him, it's very straightforward. And I just think that with the positivity, that's a big thing about it. He's also been talking about being in the weight room and adding more muscle mass, which is something he hasn't done up to this point in his career. He even mentions that as well. He struggled with press coverage in Matt Harmon's reception perception, but there are also a lot of positives. And Matt Harmon does a really awesome job breaking down Jameson Williams and his end of season this past year, and how if you break that sample size up a little bit, it looks a lot better for JMO in the future than what people had previously thought would happen with JMO. And I think, he's still got that kind of stink on him, so he's still kind of cheap right now. People definitely are catching on to the hype for JMO, though. The price is a little bit more pricey than what I thought it would be when I put him on the buy list.
For sure.
And JMO for Godwin, JMO for Deontay, early 25 second. If I can get back to like mid 25 second, where it's a little bit more questionable as to what I'm getting, I'm definitely on the JMO side there.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I'm willing to pay a second for him, as long as it's not like an early second. But okay. So here's the thing with Jameson Williams. I could go back and forth on this dude, and I have. Like, I think you can make a pretty easy case. Like, so Josh Reynolds is now gone. So realistically, that's 75 targets that went to Josh Reynolds last year. That Jameson Williams could get a chunk of that. Increase his target share. Also, Sam Laporta got 144 targets last year. Amon-Ra got 190. Like, that's I mean, that was including the postseason, right? So that's crazy.
Sure.
I think Dan Campbell even mentioned that, Laporta might not get quite as many targets as he got last year, and that they might spread the ball around a little bit more. The biggest thing for me is they didn't draft a receiver. They didn't bring anyone in really via free agency. Like, did they bring anyone in?
Traquan Smith is there now.
Okay, so they didn't bring anyone in. Like, he's just a body, right?
Yeah,
Traquan's a fine player, but I mean that tells me that they believe in Jameson Williams and they think he's going to do something. Like they can't just have basically Laporta, Sun God, and Jahmyr Gibbs is like their main pass catchers. Like they need a fourth guy, and even if Jameson is the fourth guy, I think he has that like enough big plays in him that he can pay off and be like a solid, a decent like flex play from time to time. And I'm willing to take the risk on that for like a mid 25 second. Like when you start getting into that middle second pick range, those picks start getting dicey. Like, like those, I mean, that was like Kendrick Miller a couple years ago, who's done nothing. That was, I mean, that's kind of in that Roman Wilson kind of Xavier Leggett this year, which is like guys that you kind of hope are going to do something, but you don't really know. So like, what's the difference between
just as many question
Jameson marks. Exactly, just as many question marks. And Jameson Williams is in a good spot where it's like that's a good offense. Jared Goff's a good quarterback. Like he can distribute the ball within his system. Jameson Williams, they should scheme up some plays for him. He's fast as hell. So like,
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, even if he just catches like 6 touchdowns because of bombs, like that should, if you happen to play in those weeks, you should be good to go, right? Like,
Right, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up is maybe it's not there on a
yeah,
consistent basis, but maybe you have a week winner just sitting in your flex spot, on a weekly basis. Could be a little boom busty, and for a mid two, I mean, I would think I'm fine with that type of production.
yeah, for sure. And I think I kind of think of him as kind of a poor man's Deshaun Jackson from back in the day, right? Where
Sure.
there are going to be times where he's gonna screw you over, right? And you're going to get like 3 points, but
Right.
there's also going to be times where he catches like a 70-yard bomb, and you're stoked, right? Because your flex just got
Right.
14 points. So
Exactly. Exactly.
I know I always give you crap about Jameson Williams in the Discord, but I'm coming around to him a little bit. I do think his
Yeah.
price is getting a little higher though. Like, so
I agree. And that's
the
it's
Godwin
tough
trade is
at the price
interesting.
point.
The
Yeah.
Godwin trade was interesting. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know, and I
Yeah.
know you're the
I don't think I
JMO
could
fan,
do.
so
I couldn't. I don't think I could do Godwin or Deontay, and I like JMO. But I know that Godwin and Deontay can be target vacuums when they're at their best.
yeah,
And you just put them in your lineup and you don't really worry about it. JMO, you're going to worry a little bit as to, what's going to be happening here.
yeah, you are.
But yeah, he's looking swole though. I saw a photo and then you're like,
Is he
dang, that's Jay. Yeah, he does not look like chopsticks anymore.
good?
Um,
Well, there you go, man. That's all the more reason to start to buy in a little bit, right? Especially this time of year, dude. You get those like shirtless pictures of the guys working out, and they're looking
he,
good.
he was
It
wearing a shirt in this
skyrockets.
one. Wearing
Oh,
a
okay.
shirt in this one.
Wow. Well, once that shirt comes off, he's moving up the tier.
We'll be even more excited. You want to bounce back and forth?
Yeah, let's do it. First guy I had here was Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and I know it's funny. I mentioned him as the guy, and Mitch from Dynasty Daddy immediately started just crapping all over him. So I'm gonna do my best to paint a picture as to why you should buy Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I think part of the problem last year was Dave Canales left Seattle, and Shane Waldron was left as like the lone guy in the brain trust, as opposed to Canales being there to kind of draw up the right schemes. This was the first year that Waldron was the lone, OC, with Canales obviously going to the Tampa Bay. I don't think Waldron did a very good job or put that offense in positions where they could use 3 wide receivers effectively. And part of it is just like, I don't think they knew what to do with Njigba, right? Like they knew what to do with DK Metcalf, and then Tyler Lockett kind of played the opposite wide receiver role. And kind of looking at some of the stats, like Lockett had 117 targets to DK's 112. JSN had 90, which it doesn't feel like they were that close just based on how bad JSN was last year, but he wasn't that far behind in terms of targets. It's just how they were used. Like the average depth of target for those players, Lockett was down at 12 yards. DK Metcalf was 14.1, so just throwing the ball downfield to him. JSN's ADOT was down at 6.4. So they basically used him just almost exclusively on like screens and like little short routes, which is fine, but I think he's a better route runner than that. Like you need to give him routes to run to set him up for better success. Like he's not going to produce points running these little tiny routes all the time. So that being said, Shane Waldron is now gone in Seattle, and I'm of the opinion that this new offense that they're going to run in Seattle is for the better for Geno and really just everyone. The coordinator they brought in is Ryan Grubb. He came from the college football ranks. He was at Washington this past year, which had all 3 of their wide receivers and their quarterback drafted very high in the NFL. He runs kind of an air raid scheme with more like deep passing concepts. All 3 of those receivers, Jalen Polk, Rhamondre, and Jalen McMillan, who is Holler's boy, incidentally, did really well and were all involved in running deep routes last year. And I think they're going to use them all, the DK, Lockett, and JSN similarly this year, which can only mean good things for JSN. Also, Lockett's getting older. I think as he starts to fade out, JSN can kind of take that next step forward. And the other thing too is that like Smith-Njigba, so it was, last year he was drafted like the wide receiver 1, kind of in that 105, 106 spot, kind of right around like Jahmyr Gibbs. He had a kind of a poor season, but now we're just going to write him off automatically. He's down to like wide receiver 30, I think, on Dynasty Daddy. So he's fallen way down only because he had he didn't immediately produce year one, but like sometimes these guys don't produce right away because they have bad situations. Sure. Like we don't need to just. I think we got a little too impatient with him. That being said, like if he falters again this year, then yeah, he might be dead. But I don't think he is yet, and I think he can still play. I think he can play the guitar, and so I think he's a guy you need to buy, especially before the training camp reports start coming out. I think there's going to be a lot of hype about that offense. I think they're going to be throwing the ball all over the place, and so I think his value is going to go up this year because people are going to see that they're going to throw the ball a ton, and they're actually going to use him downfield like he should be used. All right.
I don't know how much. I don't know how much of a downfield threat JSN actually is. Just from watching his college tape, I mean, he gets ran down from behind consistently on there, and then he ran he does. It's all over there. Watch it. It's all over there. Anyway, I was shocked about the 90 targets though, because it feels like he didn't catch a pass all season. Honestly, from just like remembering back to the season, that's how his season feels to me. Is like he almost QJ'd it, and just did absolutely zero all year long. I agree. Lockett can take a step back. New offensive system. I think I'm a little nervous. I know Geno has been fine. That wasn't the case for the first what was it, 7 years of his career. Something along those lines.
Now, the first 7 years, he was playing for the Jets, so we got to give him a pass on that.
That's fair. Definitely fair. There's some real trash teams in there. But yeah, when we were going into JSN's rookie class last year, I kind of had moved him back in my tiers just based off what I saw film-wise from him. And I think he could be a volume receiver for sure. And a chain mover, but like he's going to have to see massive target volume, I think, to really reap the benefits for you guys to be a wide receiver one.
I don't even know if he needs more. I mean, he got 90 targets last year. I don't even know if he needs like a ton more than that. I think he can get around that 110 to 115 target range. So maybe he gets a few extra Lockett's targets kind of come down. Like I think just how he's going to be used in this offense and how this offense runs. So we said how it did in Washington, right? I think that alone is going to be enough to move the needle for him. Like he basically just ran like screens and little like slant routes last year. And so if you get him, not even like downfield, even if you just get him like, 9-10 yards downfield, which incidentally, and I was just looking it up while you're talking, and at Ohio State, his ADOT was 9.3 and 12.1. And so he doesn't have to be used like he's more of like a middle field receiver, which is more than what he was used last year. Like they just basically they spent a first round pick on him and then treated him like he was like a scrub off the streets. So I don't know what the plan was for him, but it wasn't well executed. That whole offense was a mess. So I think better things are in store. Like all right, I have some trade ideas that I want to run them by you. Okay. So, all right, first one. This is going to be you're tearing down from some different players. So you could take Garrett Wilson or AJ Brown, and then you're going to tear down to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and then you're going to tack on like a mid 25 first.
Nope.
You're going to keep Garrett Wilson, who hasn't done hardly anything himself. Let's just
Garrett Wilson's super good at football.
So is Njigba, dude.
I don't know. You
don't think so?
I think
okay.
Yeah, I think two different things about those guys.
Okay. Nico Collins for JSN and a 25 second. Let's just pretend that's a mid as well. And I know you don't like Nico Collins either, so that's just kind of a fun one for you.
Yeah, this is super fun. I hate most of these players.
That's why I chose him.
I will take Nico. And that mid, we just spoke about what that mid second could possibly be, and we've been really making the case for why JSN can succeed. So give me the guy that's at least done it one time.
Okay. Kenneth Walker, and a 25 third for JSN and 25 second.
I'm picking Kenneth Walker here.
I know. All right. And then the next idea I had was that you're going to try to tier up from AD Mitchell and a 25 third for JSN. This one I feel like is actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, I feel like, if I was into JSN, I could pay that pretty easily with the question marks behind AD Mitchell.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that we didn't necessarily like on him, so I could see adding a third.
The only thing I can think of on that is that it might be the same type of manager, and you might have them both on the same roster. You might have the same guy who drafted JSN might have also just drafted AD Mitchell last year. So
just really into question marks.
Yeah,
he's the Riddler.
Exactly. Let me ask you this: the Nico Collins one. If I turn that into a late first instead of the mid 25 second, does that change your mind at all? Or are you really just like so out on JSN that I can't convince you to buy him?
I'm pretty darn out on JSN.
Okay.
But that late first makes it pretty enticing.
Okay.
But Nico is attached to CJ Stroud. He's got a new contract himself. Stephon Diggs is there for 1 year. And I just, think the ceiling goes up for Nico.
Okay. So, what was your answer? I think you kind of talked around.
Oh, sorry. Oh, jeez. Oh. I'll stay Nico.
Okay.
But it's very tough. It's very tough. I just can't get behind JSN, man. I can't get on that train. Can't do it.
That's fair. I think he's gonna. It's funny that you have all this faith in Jameson Williams, but
I'm a Lions fan.
You can't get behind JSN, who arguably, I don't know. Whatever. They both did it 1 year in college.
Yeah, and JSN did it against a converted running back in a bowl game for 400 yards.
No, he was good the whole year at Ohio State.
Yeah.
He was good. He was.
Marvin Harrison will do that for you. Wasn't CJ Stroud his quarterback?
He was with Stroud, and then he was with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave.
Remember what Kenny Golladay looked like when Matthew Stafford was his quarterback?
Don't do that. That's completely different. Don't bring Golladay into this.
I'm just saying when you have a super good quarterback.
I think Geno's a fine quarterback. I really think the scheme they ran last year they just didn't use JSN appropriately, and I think if he keeps, I think the volume was fine enough, but he could have been a wide receiver 3. They just didn't get him the ball like how they should have.
Sure.
And I'm just more making the case that I think a better offensive scheme
I totally agree with you on the usage, and just from watching games and stuff, like it really was. There's little bubble screens, and like we all know about the slow 40, and I know he had an improved 40 time at his pro day, as you guys have taught me now. He's still slow on an NFL field, so throwing the slow guy, the bubble screens is
he
not
had
the
like
best
one
idea.
he's not slow. His 40 time was fine. And then Keenan Allen had one of the slowest 40 times in the history of the world, by the way. He ran like a 4.65.
They're not throwing little bubble screens to Keenan Allen though.
Well, and they shouldn't be. But JSN also had one of the
I'm
best.
With you on the routes.
He had like one of the best 3-cone drills too at the combine. Like he lit that up. Like so he is quick. Like he's not like a burner. I'm not gonna get into that and try to defend him there. But I just think they didn't. Basically, if the if the ball was coming to JSN, the defense just knew that they could just close in on it because he wasn't going more than like 3 yards downfield is all I'm getting at. Like they didn't have to respect any other routes other than they knew he was staying within like 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I think they're going to use him, at least give him the threat of doing something more, whether they use him that way. And they don't need to because they have DK Metcalf, right? I don't know. I think it was like malpractice what they did to him last year.
Yeah, he should have been working in the middle of the field because that's what he does best is working in the middle of the field. And that's why, I'm not totally he's not a bubble screen guy. Like just the way he plays is not a bubble screen guy. Like he can run all those things fast, but you still have to put that on the field. And I just don't see him as a fast player, like when he plays, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we're going to need to find a JSN water bet.
Sure.
Because
I can't wait to lose all the bets that I've done this year. We'll tally them all at the end of the year and let everybody know.
Also, I forgot to mention too, Jason got hurt in the preseason last year too. And so he missed some time in training camp because he broke his wrist. He had a slight wrist fracture in a preseason game where he was doing really well. Now, we don't need to talk about the merits of preseason games, but missing training camp is.
Didn't Kenny Pickett light up the preseason too last year?
That's where that was going. Yes. He sure did. He sure did.
Neither here nor there.
Damn it, didn't work out well for him.
Gosh, what a fake out that was, man. Oh,
yeah, it was rough.
Anyway, should we move on from JSN? Do we got any more JSN thoughts?
No, I think I've made my case as much as I can.
Okay. I will get in on Mr. Ricky Pears.
Okay.
We're setting up the show sheet, and I'm like, who can I do? And I liked Ricky's, film from college and everything. Pretty Ricky, as we like to call him. And I think this is probably the cheapest he will be because eventually Ayuk or Debo is leaving town. Now, it may not be this year. It really may not. Right. But the way Ayuk is doing things right now leans me towards it could be a possibility that they're just like, I'm not doing this again with Ayuk because in his second year, he was also in the doghouse with Shanahan for some attitude issues and things along those lines. So I can't speak on their relationship, but I could see that as being something annoying. Like now we have to deal with this. Like I understand you want to get paid, but we're making phone calls with Jaden Daniels and we're putting it all over Twitter and we're showing up to Jaden Daniels with meetings. Like that's more than just like being upset that I'm not getting paid and making a cryptic Antonio Brown tweet. To me, there's a little bit more there going on, but I think Ricky Pears is super good. He had a really good connection with Brock Purdy in OTAs, from what the report said, which is really great. I don't think he's overly expensive. He can get expensive. Here's a couple trades that I pulled that I didn't think were terrible. The Jalen Waddle for Ricky Pears and a 25 first. That one is a little wishy-washy there, depending on your feelings about Waddle. But Jerry Jeudy in a third, I'll take Ricky Pears over Jerry Jeudy in a third. Keon Coleman or Ricky Pears in a second, 25 second. I'll take Ricky Pears over Keon Coleman and the 25 second. Ricky Pears in the 25 second for Jordan Addison. Also another one that I'm a little bit back and forth with, but I could easily see taking Ricky Pears.
That one I want Addison on, but honestly, the Keon Coleman one, I think there were many times where I was drafting kind of in that 202, 203 range where I debated like, which one of these guys do I want straight up? And I took both of them at different points, just because I talked myself into situation versus talent basically. And so I split it, and I have I took both different spots there. I think the good thing for Pearsall is he can kind of do a little bit of everything. And supposedly he was kind of being used like Ayuk was during OTAs, which makes me feel like it's more likely that Ayuk gets out the door than Debo does. And like you mentioned too, the Ayuk stuff that's a little dicey. Something's not right there, right? And
Yeah,
like they might be able to kind of just make amends, briefly just so that they play through the season, but it's not going to be pretty. And I mean, Shanahan, like he's not against benching guys like star players, like
right.
um, there was like a running back a couple years ago that we all thought was going to play, and then he like missed curfew. Actually, hell, Ayuk has been
It was
benched before.
right.
Um,
Ayuk's second season, he spent like the entirety of it in the doghouse. Like,
yeah,
and
it was
I
Ayuk and
think
one of the running backs.
um, it was Sermon. It was
Oh
Sermon.
yeah,
Everybody thought Sermon was going to be the guy,
hmm
and then he gets
then it
in
was
trouble
Elijah
for this for
Mitchell.
a few, and
Yeah,
then Elijah Mitchell shows up. Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh my
Ayuk
goodness.
has had problems there before. There's a possibility that this season where Ayuk's still there and they just use Pearsall more because he's not throwing a tantrum in the locker room. Um,
Right.
and
Right. Like that
posting
is a thing.
stuff
It's
on
like
social
it's part
media.
of
Yeah.
football. It's part of it's
hmm
part of life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these things do affect people.
If you were to send a pick straight up for next year for Pearsall, what's the highest you would feel comfortable paying for him?
Early too, where I was taking him.
Okay, so basically same as where he was this year.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like
Mm.
he's gonna. I mean, I can't send a late one for him. There's a few more. There's just so much difference between that late one in people's eyes to that early two. Even though from
Even though
like I
it's
think we've
not.
talked about it before, from what
Yeah.
like 109 to 203 this past year, you could have shaken that up in a hat and drawn from it, and you probably would have been like, oh, all right, makes sense why you did that there.
Yeah, most years that one, like let's call it 111 to 202, is usually tiered together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually guys you might prefer a little bit more than the other, but like for in terms of like value and where they're going ADP wise, they're usually about the same. Um, do you think if Ricky Pearsall starts off slow and like let's say IU kind of pulls his head out of his ass and starts actually playing football and not just posting on social media?
Mm-hmm.
Pearsall's like the third fiddle there. He's just very ho hum. Do you think his value goes down at all in season? Let's call it the first 2 months of the season. He's just doing nothing. He's not being used very much. He's basically just kind of he's fifth in the offense behind the Kittle, the two receivers, and CMC. Can you get a
I think
discount midseason?
I I'm gonna say not from smart managers because they're already gonna have this baked into their mind that this rookie season could be a wash for Ricky Pearsall. Like when you take him,
Yeah.
you have to have that in the back of your mind that I may not see this dude until next season on the field because
Yeah.
of his situation. But when we're talking about situations to be in, the dude gets drafted by one of the best offensive coaches we have in football right now, who has an
Mhm.
offensive system that no matter who's playing quarterback, who's in at wide receiver, who's in at running back, it never slows down. I mean, it's supercharged because CMC is there, but even without CMC, it's still a very good offense for years prior. You can go back and find all that information. So I think, buying into Ricky Pears is a good idea because of what his situation actually is and his talent combined. It's almost like a confirmation, like watch the film. He looks super good on the film. Then he gets drafted by a team that we think highly of and their foundation and everything like that. Like it's like doubling down onto him at that point.
That's fair. And that's the thing too with Shanahan is he's gonna scheme up plays for people.
Yeah.
And this is the best wide receiver 3 option they've ever had. Like
Mm-hmm.
last year they were rolling out Jawan Jennings, which no disrespect, like he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronnie Bell I think he had a really good game in there too when I think it was Debo or Ayuk were in and out of the lineup one week, and I think Ronnie Bell scored. And
Mm-hmm.
actually was playing like really competent football. So Pearsall is like the best wide receiver 3. We haven't really seen that, like what Shanahan can do with a full, basically skill position of healthy like stars, basically, which is
Yeah.
what he's going to have if Debo, Ayuk, Pearsall, Kittle, and CMC are all out there healthy. Like you're not stopping that. It's just a matter of what the scheme is to which guy, right?
Right.
There might be more weeks spread out. But
Yeah.
I can get on board with Pearsall.
Yeah, who we got next?
Okay, let's talk about Jerome Ford. It's actually funny. Someone mentioned it in the comment section earlier about would you pay a 25 second for him?
So
And I was like, oh, hold that
went
thought.
to
We're gonna
Jerome
talk about
Ford
him.
right then and there.
Yeah, I know. So Jerome Ford last season he was the RB16 in PPR scoring, so he actually outscored David Montgomery, James Conner, DeAndre Swift. There's a real possibility that Nick Chubb is going to start the 2024 season on the PUP list. He has no timetable to return, which is always a little concerning. Like usually guys will say something along the lines of like, oh yeah, like we're, feeling good. We'll see how I am at training camp. But he's just like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like we're not, there's no timetable, which is a little concerning considering the injury he had. And who's to say when he comes back, are they going to get they're probably going to ease him in, right? They're not going to just like say, oh, okay, you're Nick Chubb, as soon as you're healthy, you're getting the full workload, right? So my thought here is Chubb is very realistically going to start the season on the PUP, so that's 6 weeks. And then when he comes back, it's probably going to take about, another 2 to 3 weeks to get him kind of back into the rotation. And then last year, the Browns ran the ball the 4th most times in the NFL. Kareem Hunt, who they signed off the street, got 143 rush attempts last year. Now let's assume Nick Chubb gets back and, like from midseason on, he's the RB1, and then Ford is still there. Like I still think Ford is useful as the RB2 in that situation, just because how much they run the ball. And Jerome Ford's actually a pretty good pass catcher, whereas Nick Chubb is not. So I think even when Chubb is back, like Ford has PPR value there. Right now on Dynasty Daddy, he's valued right around a mid-third. That's where I think the comment earlier is like, would you spend a 25 second for him? I think it's a little rich, and I don't know if you need to spend that much. I think an early third gets the job done in most cases, or if you can send maybe 2/3 for it. And if you do send a 2, see if you can get like a 3 back. Like if it's like a late 3, right?
The JB special right there.
Exactly. Just because I think paying a late second is a little overkill, but I do think like Jerome Ford, I think he's going to be a back end RB2 for at least like the first 2 months of the season, and then even then after that, I think he's going to be a decent flex play because there were times last year where you could play Kareem Hunt and like you didn't always feel great about it, but like he was fine, and Jerome Ford's a lot better than Kareem Hunt at this stage of his career. So I don't know, man. What do you think about Jerome Ford? Are you buying into that at all, or you just think I'm blowing rainbows up people's asses?
I think for his price, it's completely fine, to take that kind of shot on somebody, and I get why you would do it, especially with the questions for Nick Chubb. My only question is, what is Donta Foreman doing here?
Sucking. Like he's done everywhere.
Dude, he can carry volume though, man. He can take volume and he can bang between the tackles. And if he becomes that goal line back in this situation, I know it's not a super awesome offense, really. I don't think it's a good rushing offense. But everybody shares carries these days. But at a third, like I can't make a huge argument against him. Even late seconds, I can't make huge arguments against, because who did you draft at the late second this year?
Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, Ben Sinnott, Jatavian Sanders. That's kind of that range of player, which maybe.
So it's a lot. Exactly. It's a lot of questions for me. I know you're a big Troy Franklin guy, but
I do like my turtle.
Yeah, yes, you do.
I don't. Okay, Donta Foreman. I'm not worried about him at all. I think he is like the Kareem Hunt replacement until Nick Chubb gets back, and then I think he just goes by the wayside and just says, "Hey, can I get you guys some water? You look a little thirsty."
Yeah, he could be the water boy. That is for sure. I just want to see something real quick with him. I have him on this roster. Makes sense.
Do you?
Yeah. It was just the first league. I looked at it. I just wanted to see this. carries.
Yeah, so Dante Foreman, like last year too, he looked bad. Like he had averaged over 4 yards, like 4.5 yards per carry, basically everywhere he's been. Last year he averaged under 4 at 3.9. I know he got hurt. Well, okay, but I mean,
I understand the number's the number, but
the number's the number, man.
if he falls forward like one more time,
he was under 4 yards a carry, and I'm gonna stand by it. The number's
listen,
don't lie, man.
Also, I mean, he was in Carolina last year. What was good in Carolina?
He was in Chicago last year.
Oh, he's in Chicago? Jesus.
And what? Okay,
Carolina was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Okay, but what did Chicago do well last year? They ran the shit out of the football. I can tell you that.
Well, I think a lot of that comes back to that RPO run game along with Justin Fields. And so take Justin Fields out of those yardage totals, and I wonder what your running back actual run game looks like versus that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't think Dante Foreman is any sort of world beater, but if you put him in a super good situation with somebody like Stefanski, who has a very good run game, I think he can kind of Jamal Williams his way to making the correct decision and falling forward for the 3 to 5 yards that's needed or required in this offense. And I could see to where that could get him playing time over, somebody that's missing assignments or anything like that along those lines. I don't know. There's a reason they brought him in.
Okay, so real quick. So basically apples to apples, Khalil Herbert last year, he had 132 rush attempts to Dante Foreman's 109. Herbert had 611 yards to Foreman's 425, averaged 4.6 yards per attempt compared to Foreman's 3.9. So I think same situation, and I don't really think that highly of Khalil Herbert, but he ran significantly better than Foreman did. I don't think Foreman's anything to be worried about. Is all I'm getting at.
That's fair. It's not like he's, I can't remember what round I drafted him in. It's probably 27. Something along those lines.
Like he's probably going to be one of the first guys you cut as soon as first round of waivers or two in the first week of the tour season to see who's actually.
He could not make it through training camp, and I also wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and be on the roster. So.
I think he's there until Chubb gets healthy.
And I think he's your volume grinder kind of guy because I think Jerome Ford is definitely more explosive than what Dante Foreman is going to bring to the table. And I think that's where you get that difference between Herbert and Foreman and that yards per carry too.
Sure.
Is in that those explosive runs for sure.
Sure.
Should we move on to
who's he got?
Okay. I put Chuba Hubbard on here. The Panthers heavily invested in that offensive line, especially at the guard spots. Basically, I had JB help me out with some stats for this one, and Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard were pretty much exactly the same stat-wise.
That's interesting.
Minimal difference between the two of them on pretty much all the stats. We're talking yards after contact per attempt, 2.65 for Miles Sanders to 2.87 for Chuba. Breakaway percentage is 21.5 for Miles, 18.8 for Chuba. Yard per out run is 0.73 for Miles, 0.79 for Chuba. So pretty darn similar. So I know he has to compete with Miles to begin the season here. I think Miles Sanders is a home run swinging running back. And just like we were talking about before with Dante Foreman, I think Chuba probably makes the right decision and just gets your 2 to 3 yards and takes what the line gets him, and Miles is going to look to bounce that thing and can get himself into trouble. We saw it in Philadelphia. I think there's reasons why people let running backs go in Philadelphia. We think it's a good organization as well, and they let Miles Sanders walk out the door. They didn't want to pay him. And we have Jonathon Brooks, who just came in. He's coming off an ACL. We were looking this up before the show. It sounds like he's on track to be ready for eased into training camp. So eased into training camp to me sounds like a slow first month of the season, at least. And for the things, did I not look at any trades for Chuba? I didn't look up any trades for Chuba.
It's all right. While you look up some trades for Chumbawamba over there,
Yeah.
One of my buys actually was Jonathon Brooks, so I think this is probably we can talk about him together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is gonna start the year kind of slower. He's coming off the ACL. He tore his ACL and I think it was like mid-November at Texas. That being said, they still drafted him pretty highly in the second round. I think there was a realistic chance if he didn't get hurt, he could have went even higher than he did. And then the Panthers, I think there's room for both of these guys to be successful, even when they're both healthy. They spent more money on guards than anybody else does in the league, and so I think they're gonna just run the football. I think Dave Canales, that's what the identity he wants is. He wants like a big physical offensive line, and he's just gonna pound the rock. I don't think he wants Bryce Young slinging the ball about 40 times a game, right? No. I think they're gonna. They realistically, like if at the end of the year the Panthers they ran the ball like top 5 in the league, I would not be shocked at all. So I think there's realistic room for both these guys to be fantasy relevant. I think Jonathon Brooks eventually takes over as the kind of the 1A there, and I think he might start similar to like how Jahmyr Gibbs did last year, where they used him very sparingly, and then as the season progressed, they got him more and more work. I think I could very well see that, and I also could see, Chuba Hubbard running kind of like a Tyler Algier type of season where he's not like the sexy guy, right? And he's kind of just like the 1B, but he gets enough work. And if he ends up getting like goal line carries and that sort of thing, like he could be very successful. And I think both these guys, I think there's going to be enough volume there for them. I do prefer Brooks, and I think the ceiling is there for Brooks to kind of take off. But I think Chuba Hubbard shouldn't be like left for dead or anything. I think he's a fine running back, and I think he could be a solid kind of second option on a team that's going to run the ball a ton with a pretty good offensive line.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring him up, is because he's not somebody I've even thought about like this entire offseason until we started, trying to think of these pre-camp buy players. And I think that's kind of to people's advantage is, he's not on people's minds. I found some trades for him. We got Chuba for a 25 third. That's pretty easy. Chuba for Traylon Burks. Easy. God. Yeah, right?
That's free.
Right. This one is Quentin Johnson, a 25 second for Chuba, Michael Thomas, and the 24 208.
What the hell is Michael Thomas doing in there? That's interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
But I'll take the Chuba side on that one, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Unless that 25 second is going to be like the early 2.
Sure. That's the thing too. You always kind
of I assume mid-late at least on these picks that I see straight up for backup running backs, but I've seen crazier things happen.
I feel like, though, if you send out a trade offer for a mid-third, if your team's kind of middling for Chuba Hubbard, like I feel like that gets accepted more often than not, don't you think?
I would think so. I'm definitely going to take a peek on Dynasty Daddy and see what the daddy thinks about your team when you send me a third for Chuba Hubbard. That's for sure. Isaac Garendo and Jaleel McLaughlin for Chuba Hubbard.
Okay, now I actually have some legit Jaleel. I think he might end up being the RB1 in Denver, so I would probably take the Jaleel side on that. But I do get where you're coming from, though. That might be more just me thinking.
I'm with you on this trade. I don't think I would send Jaleel for Chuba. I think at this point in time, there's more hype behind McLaughlin and what he could possibly do for that offense than anything we've heard about Chuba.
Yeah, like Jaleel is one. Actually, he probably could have been on this list too as like a guy to buy before, because there was, I know it was probably just like a BS rumor, but there was a rumor that Javonte Williams might not even make the roster. Supposedly he's looking not great in OTAs. Jaleel, dude, he's the kind of running back that Sean Payton loves, right? He can do a little bit of everything. He runs hard. Sounds like he's a really good kid from all reports. I wouldn't be selling him at the moment. But going back to Jonathon Brooks, the thing I wanted to mention is I think the way the running back landscape is right now, it's pretty wide open after those first few guys. I think there's a realistic possibility that Jonathon Brooks is the the RB1 nicely in in Carolina, and that offense is just even middling. Like Jonathon Brooks could easily be the running back like 6 or 7 by the end of the season, and that's why I think right now his value's down a little bit because he is kind of injured, and people are not sure what to expect from him. But I think, an ACL tear doesn't, especially for such a young guy, like doesn't scare me.
Yeah, it's not 1995 anymore.
Exactly.
The science has advanced.
Exactly. And it was just a clean ACL tear from what I read. It wasn't like an ACL plus other ligaments, which is where some of these guys get into trouble. And he's like 22 years old, which also are 23, which helps.
Got the youth on his side. Okay, I got one last guy here.
Okay, hit me with him.
Mr. Tank Bigsby.
That's your boy.
He is. He was my guy last year. I was taking him, in the second, which they all wound up being way too early, and I wound up super disappointed with Mr. Tank Bigsby. I'm back in at these prices of J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, 25 third. Some crazy person sent Cooper Kupp for Tank Bigsby. Don't do that. That's insanity. That's way too much.
There had to be.
Yeah.
So some of these where it's like that, I wonder if it's like a Devy league where it's like, oh, there's a Devy pick attached to that. You just don't see it. Like there's a Devy player, because that just makes no sense unless it was like Tank Bigsby himself.
Right.
I don't know.
Rondale Moore for Tank Bigsby. I will take Tank Bigsby.
For sure.
The coach speak has been pretty positive about getting Tank more involved and at least giving him those opportunities. So I think he's definitely worth the risk for somebody who they want to give the ball. Now, is it going to work out? I don't know. I'm crossing my fingers that it does work out because I love Tank Bigsby. I think he's a good running back. I think he has a little bit of a fumbling issue. He had his, a rookie season, and and people develop at different paces. So at least this is what I tell myself at night about Tank Bigsby. Maybe this could be the year. But I do think ETN needs somebody else to take the load off of him.
He does.
And that could be Tank Bigsby. It really could be.
It could be. And, God forbid anything happens to Travis Etienne.
Sure.
Tank Bigsby's going to get just a huge workload. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Just let JaMychal Hasty run the ball about 30 times? Like, you're just
no.
Come on. And Etienne, I think we talked about this before, he had some of the most touches in the league last year too, and they've talked all offseason about how they need to get that down. And actually after their bye week last year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but his touches in his fantasy production went down. That's because they were using JaMychal Hasty more than they were just giving Etienne this through pure volume. And I think Tank Bigsby is he's still a talented player. He had some fumbling issues, and it sounds like maybe some slight immaturity issues kind of early on in the season last year, which hopefully he has a whole year to learn from that. Sounds like, like you said, like the offseason reports are pretty positive. We'll see come training camp, but it wouldn't shock me if Tank Bigsby starts getting maybe if it goes to kind of like even at like 70-30, I think there's some value that might be had there. And I don't know, what would you be willing to pay for Tank? Like if you're would you pay a late second for next year for him, or do you think that's too high still? Would you? I would feel comfortable doing an early third. Okay, 2/3.
Yeah,
that's fair.
2/3 probably equal to that late second, but that second still has that 2 attached to it that those thirds don't.
Okay, that's fair. No complaints from me.
What are you going to give up for Tank Bigsby?
What am I going to give up? I would give up an early third for him.
Okay.
I don't feel too terrible about that. I could probably do if I'm sending a late 2, I could probably do some small piece back where it's like whether it's a third on the way back or if it's like a late third value player that I also want some just to get a little bit extra if I'm going to send that second, right? I want to get something back just as like a safety net.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let me do our last guy here real quick. Jordan Addison. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, but the basically the logic here is TJ Hawkinson is probably going to be on the PUP, and so the only other players there are Justin Jefferson, which granted he's great. We joked about, he might get like a 40% target share. Like, even if that's true, like, who are the other targets going to go to, right? Like, it's Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, and then just a bunch of no names. So even when Hawkinson comes back, like, there's a ton of room there. This is a really good offense. Even if Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy is running the show there, I don't really care because it is kind of in that McVay Shanahan offensive tree. So give me Jordan Addison all day long. And I'm actually going to steal this idea from the Dynasty Theory guys, but they were talking about sending Devontae Smith for Jordan Addison in 25-second. And if I can get, I'm not very high on Devontae Smith to begin with, so if I can get Addison and then like some kind of a plus for like a second, like, I'm smashing that all day long. I think Jordan Addison's, I think the hate's gotten a little bit far on him. I don't know why everyone's kind of talking down on him a little bit, but I think he's a good player. He had a really good rookie season. Like, there's no reason for him to be losing value. And he plays on a good offense with a good, I mean, I think he's going to be fine. He's going to get schemed up fine.
Yeah, people like Kevin O'Connell for sure, and the things that he has going on. Addison also gets that benefit of having JJ opposite him, so I don't think he's ever seeing any double coverage or, I think he's going to have a lot of very good opportunities for himself. The parts that make me nervous is what I told you before the show. It's just the JJ McCarthy, Sam Darnold of it all. That part makes me nervous. I know that we're down, like, we like the offensive system and everything like that. Yeah. But the quarterbacks make me nervous for sure. I'm not out on Addison by any means, and I'm with you that he's definitely a lot lower than what he should be, I think, for the season he had.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we've seen that Kyle Shanahan's done with like Brock Purdy and other guys. And honestly, I mean, Kevin O'Connell, let's just use Kevin O'Connell. Like, he got really good play to Josh Dobbs for like 4 weeks last year, who came in off the streets and just were in the offense and just kind of did whatever. Like, after Kirk Cousins got hurt, like, the quarterback play really didn't drop off that much. Like, Justin Jefferson was still good. Addison was good. With Hawkinson was good with just like whoever at quarterback, man. So like, I think whether it's McCarthy or Sam Darnold, and I do think it's still going to be McCarthy, but I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on right now. They're just trying to make him earn the starting role. But no matter who it is, I think it's an upgrade over who they were rolling out last year at quarterback. So I think he's there's no reason to think his production drops just based on quarterback play. And if anything, like, they lost, talent at the receiver position because KJ Osborne's out the door, and they really didn't replace him. So,
I believe this is Nico from the Discord, and he thinks you could get a little more than that second.
It's even better if I get more than the second.
Right. It'll be nice, but I don't know how much more because Devonta has that stink on him too. I don't know if it's just because I only play in like DT leagues now and like nobody wants any Devonta anywhere right now. But nobody's come asking me for any Devonta lately. So
no, we've also crapped on him pretty heavily. So that hasn't helped.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. God dang it! Sometimes it's just better to keep your mouth shut, huh?
I know it. I know it.
On that note, you got anything else for the people, McSpanky?
That's all I got. Go out there, make some moves. Also, don't get frustrated. I know it's frustrating because right now there's not a lot of people. Some people take a break from Dynasty. Not everyone's a Dynasty diehard, right? So don't get too frustrated. As training camp approaches, people will kind of start coming back, and we can get some trades going again. Also, we're going to be in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo. So if you want to come hang out with us and say what up, that is your opportunity. It's like sometime in early August. So we will be there. It'll be fun. That's all we got. Peace out.
See ya.